Kavaliauskas versus Ray Robinson. Let's talk about the fight. You know, I didn't actually pick a pony in this show. This is just one of those fights I sat down to watch. I caught the thing last night, and these are just my thoughts on the thing, you know?
Yeah, no.
This was a genuinely frustrating fight to watch. This was one of those fights where you're just waiting for something interesting to happen, and before you know it, the fight is over. There may be some controversy over how the fight was scored. The fact that it was ruled a majority draw, where some people might feel that Ray Robinson had did enough to win the fight. The people in attendance certainly did, but that might have more to do with Ray Robinson being a native to Philadelphia and the fight itself just so happening to take place there. You know, you heard the crowd reaction, so they weren't happy with the decision, but I think that's more along the lines of they were hoping that their guy from Philly would get the decision. Let's talk about what we saw. You know, as far as how the judges scored this thing, and I can already tell that some people aren't going to agree with this. I can already tell that there are going to be people in the comments that don't take a liking to what I'm about to say, but I actually agreed with the decision. I didn't see anything outstanding from either side of the spectrum, from Kavaliauskas or Ray Robinson. Let's talk about why. You know, in this fight, Kavaliauskas definitely struggled. Kavaliauskas struggled to get anything going, and the meaningful punches on the part of what is this power puncher, the meaningful punches were far and few. This is a guy who was struggling to get within range of Ray Robinson, not to be confused with Sugar Ray Robinson, another welterweight who used to happen to go by that name. Wink, wink. But he struggled to get within proximity of Ray Robinson. As Ray Robinson was moving and punching, sticking and moving, Kavaliauskas was working hard just to track the guy down and get something going. And you know, he really didn't. In that way, I feel that Ray Robinson exposed Kavaliauskas. He exposed the deficiencies in his technique, his limitations as a fighter, that a moving target that can move and punch can give him a great deal of problems.
He found that out.
Now, while I do feel that Ray exposed Kavaliauskas, we've got to also look at where Ray Robinson came up short. What could he have done more of? And I'll tell you what he could have done more of.
Tell you what he was missing.
In the realm of offsetting Kavaliauskas' aggression, Ray Robinson did a good job. In the defense department, Ray Robinson showed virtues. This is a guy, in case you're not already familiar with this guy, this is a guy who lost a decision to Brad Solomon in 2009, lost a decision to Sean Porter in 2010, and more recently was taken out by Yordenis Ugas, the same Yordenis Ugas that just fought Sean Porter. So this is a guy that's been around the block, knows what he's doing in there, good technician, pure boxer. That much is obvious from, you know, his implementation. And what Ray Robinson did well was mostly in the defense department, offsetting Kavaliauskas' aggression, making sure that that guy doesn't get within range to land the kind of punches that he wants to land. More or less, good control, or at least good understanding of distance and spacing. But where Ray Robinson came up short is, it's not enough for you to just offset what this guy's doing, you understand? It's not enough for you to just neutralize his offense, because the question then becomes, okay, you've neutralized his offense, so where's yours? Now that you've taken away this guy's best weapons, now that he's relatively disarmed, what are you doing to capitalize off of that? You know, it's hit and not get hit. It's not just I'm going to go in there and I'm going to not get hit. It's hit and not get hit. And a lot of the time in this fight, what you saw from Ray Robinson was he's going out there, he's showing the jab. He's not actually connecting with the jab. He's being forced to fight on his back foot, back against the ropes, circling away, and he's showing the jab. So he's effectively keeping Kavaliauskas on the outside, but in the realm of clean punching and effective aggression, you're not seeing that. If we look at ring generalship, who's the ring general? Who's controlling the action in the fight? You can make an argument for either one of these guys, because where Kavaliauskas, you know, he's forcing the guy
to move back,
to give up real estate. He's putting that guy's back against those ropes. At the same time, once he's got his back against those ropes, he's not doing much with the guy. In turn,
Ray Robinson
is being forced to fight off his back foot, but he's controlling the distance enough to where he's not getting beat up round by round. But with him constantly being forced to give up real estate in the first place, constantly finding his back against the ropes, and not actually landing clean, hard shots, clean, hard counters, the way a Canelo Alvarez might land when his back is against the ropes, or the way Floyd Mayweather used to when his back was against the ropes. That would have been the determining factor. Whereas with Ray, you know, Ray's just throwing the jab out there, but he's not actually really nailing this guy. He's not lining him up for punches. So ring generalship, it's in the air. We look at defense, and that would have to go to Ray Robinson, because he was definitely the guy playing the defensive the vast majority of this fight. But how much defense is too much defense? I mean, you're not even engaging this guy. You're just throwing the jab out there to make sure he doesn't come through the front door, but you're not really following up. I'll say that if there were any meaningful punches landed in this fight, if there were, and the ones that were far and few, they were coming from Gvozdyk Kavaliauskas. When this guy did land, the few times he did, with a really good, clean, hard shot, he was more or less the only guy who landed something meaningful. Ray Robinson wasn't showing any willingness to engage. He was just doing the bare minimum to try and win the round, and it's a minimalist approach to a boxing match. This is a problem that a lot of people have with these pure boxers.
It's anticlimactic.
They're going out there. It's not really an action fight. They're fighting at a slow pace. They're only throwing one at a time out there, showing their jab, maybe an occasional 1-2, but no real willingness to engage, to impose their will on the other man. And that's very much Ray Robinson's implementation. We then look at the drawbacks for Kavaliauskas, and you might be a decent-sized puncher, you might be a mean machine, but none of that matters if you can't actually get to the guy. None of that matters if you're struggling to get within proximity of your opponent. And while Gvozdyk did do a good job of keeping up with Ray, when he actually got his back against those ropes, he hesitated. He wasn't letting his hands go. He would have had to take a more pressure-style approach to this fight with Ray Robinson. It's not a coincidence that Ray Robinson is a pure boxer who just so happens to have lost a fight to a pressure fighter by the name of Shawn Porter, a guy who busts through the front door, tries to rough the guy up. That's more or less what Kavaliauskas would have had to do, and plenty of times, this guy's back is against the ropes, Kavaliauskas is right in front of him, but he's still struggling to land something meaningful. And round by round, Ray Robinson is finding different exit strategies. So cutting off the ring seems to be an area of weakness for Kavaliauskas, because if he was doing it effectively, he would have been able to land more punches.
Or
at minimum, if you feel he's cutting off the ring effectively, then you explain why he can't seem to land
clean on this guy.
Consistent, hard shots on this guy. This is what I mean when I say that it was a frustrating fight to watch, because neither of these two guys is fighting a complete fight. They were fighting half a fight between them, and that makes for a frustrating fight to watch. On one end, Ray's showing defense but no offense, and on the other end, Kavaliauskas is showing willingness to engage but not actually landing very many clean punches. So when they called the thing a draw, I didn't lose any sleep over it. I thought, yeah, because neither of these guys earned a victory. I didn't see either of these guys earn a victory over the other man. So, the judges called it a majority draw. With that, Gvozdyk Kavaliauskas maintains his unbeaten record, but it's not without consequence. Don't kid yourself. This draw and this performance is not without consequence, because as a result of this, there's now a blueprint out on Kavaliauskas. There is a means and a method that has been exposed to the boxing community and any boxers at large that find themselves confronted with Kavaliauskas. There's a blueprint out now on how to frustrate that guy, on how to offset his aggression, on how to take his power away. There's a blueprint out now because Ray Robinson, whether you think he won, you think he lost, or you agree with the draw, there's a blueprint out now because Ray Robinson exposed that. So, those are my thoughts. Next up is the light heavyweight WBC title fight between the lineal champion, Gvozdyk, and the contender, Ngumbu. Ngumbu, a rather unheralded opponent who hails from France by way of the Congo. This is a guy who's already seen some ups and downs in his career. He's lost a couple of fights, won a couple of fights, but the matchup itself wasn't particularly interesting, and leading up to the fight, I didn't have very many thoughts about it. Now that I've seen the fight, I see why I didn't have very many thoughts about it. Ngumbu gave it his best to contend with what is the lineal light heavyweight champion. But this fight, unlike the previous fight I just talked about, was a lot more decisive. You could clearly see who the ring general was, who was showing the effective aggression, the clean punching, and the ring generalship overall. That was Gvozdyk. You didn't have to struggle to come to that conclusion. There were pockets of success that Ngumbu was having. He showed some okay defense, okay offense, landed a couple of interesting shots here and there, but it's a boxing match, so that's bound to happen. All in all, it wasn't a very intriguing matchup, and the way that it ended, another anticlimactic conclusion this past Saturday night, this guy injures his calf or something was going on, and that's open to interpretation, you understand. One way to look at it is maybe this guy stepped wrong, something got pulled, who knows? Because an injury like that isn't immediately visible to the naked eye. So it could be that way, or it could be that Ngumbu felt that he's fading, that he doesn't have much to offer, because after a while he was getting kind of flat.
He lost his sharpness.
His punches were nowhere near as snappy as they were in the earlier goings of the fight, and he found himself just, a lot of showmanship, a lot of posturing.
Moving around.
But in terms of mounting an equal to or greater than offense than Gvozdyk, well, he really wasn't doing that anymore. After a while, he's just trying not to get hit. In a situation like that, some people might interpret the way the fight ended as Ngumbu wanted to go home. And Ngumbu didn't want to be there anymore. That he knew as this fight wears on, there's a good chance he's going to sustain a lot of punishment. That he himself can feel it internally, that he's fading. So he decided to get the hell out of there. He just didn't want to be there anymore, and he faked an injury so he could go home early. That's another way to interpret it. Bottom line, this fight was not an intriguing matchup to begin with, so I don't have very many thoughts about the fight itself, or even the way that it ended. This was not a high-stakes, high-level fight per se. Maybe it was a high-stakes fight for Ngumbu because it was his chance to win a world title, but for Gvozdyk, it's a fight against an unheralded opponent and an opportunity to keep the tools sharp against some guy. We saw Gvozdyk land some good jabs upstairs, good jabs downstairs, one or two right hands, here and there. Ngumbu bouncing out of range, trying not to get hit, and Gvozdyk responding to that by gesturing with shots,
Feinting.
Gesturing a hook or gesturing an uppercut without actually executing the punch. A lot of little nuanced stuff to keep a guy guessing, keep a guy on his toes. The kind of stuff you're familiar with already if you've been watching Gvozdyk fight by fight. So you didn't learn nothing here. If you knew anything about the fighters leading up to the fight, then you didn't learn nothing here that you didn't already know. The only eventful thing, coincidentally, which was rather uneventful, was the anticlimactic finish that, Ngumbu, apparently he hurt his leg somehow. That's what he's saying, so he can't go on. It was ruled a technical knockout. It wasn't a sizzling knockout. It wasn't a knockout that you're going to wake up on Sunday morning, run and tell your friends about. It's just, it is what it is. The guy couldn't go on. He wasn't winning the fight anyway, so that's what's anticlimactic about it. But I'll tell you something, in regards to Gvozdyk, the main fight that I've got in mind is not even a unification fight. It's a fight between the WBC's mandatory challenger, Marcus Browne, who wasted no time taking to Instagram and letting it be known, or at least reminding people who didn't know, that he is the mandatory challenger to Gvozdyk's title, that fight between him and Badu Jack was a WBC final eliminator, and the winner would become the Mando. So what I'm left wondering is, what kind of time frame, what kind of ETA can we get on a fight like that arriving? Because we already know that there are issues there. We already know that there are cross-promotional, cross-network issues, that Gvozdyk is a top-ranked guy and Marcus Browne is a PBC guy. Now, Gvozdyk had to cross that street in order to fight for that belt. So are we going to see the guys over there at the PBC reciprocate with Marcus Browne? Are they going to allow him to cross that street? We know what their reputation is. We know that these guys don't really play well with others. But in this situation, when you have no world champions in the light heavyweight division on your side of the street, what else is there for you to do? You gotta at least send Marcus Browne over there once so he can fight for that belt. Otherwise, who are you gonna keep the guy busy with? 3 of the 4 world titles are on the top-ranked side of the street. That's Kovalev, Beterbiev, and Gvozdyk. The only other world title out there is the one that Bivol got. But Bivol, he's on the Matchroom DAZN side of the street, lest we forget. He's co-promoted by Main Events and Matchroom. So one way or another, for Marcus Browne, if he has any aspirations of becoming a champion, they're gonna have to let him cross the street to fight somebody, unless they can finagle
another opportunity.
Some kind of other situation, some other kind of opponent choice. Seriously, I don't know who else they got over there on that side of the street for Marcus Browne to fight. So those things in mind, they've got to let this guy cross that street. This is one situation where, they don't got a talent pool at 175 the way they got a talent pool at 147, where they can stave off and put off working with other people because they got a lot of guys in the weight class. Well, not at 175. You guys don't got no ponies in that show. This guy is on the cusp of potentially becoming a world champion, so what are they going to do? Their reputation for not working with others or not wanting to work with others could come at the cost of Marcus Browne's title shot. Those things in mind, the waiting game begins. When exactly will the WBC order Gvozdyk to have that fight? When can we expect the WBC to put their foot down and order Gvozdyk versus Marcus Browne? Because it's a far more intriguing matchup. In terms of entertainment value and just intrigue overall, Marcus Browne brings far more to the table than a guy like Ngumbu. You know, Marcus Browne, he's got comparable physical dimensions to Alexander Gvozdyk, but his implementation, his methodology, the fact he's an athletic guy, good snappy punches, respectable power, great in and out game. Regularly goes upstairs and downstairs. This is a guy who knows how to throw shots to the body. You know, interesting stuff. Stuff that makes the fight appealing. Marcus Browne brings those things to the table. And for the PBC, it's really their only chance to get at least one world title on their side of the street for their guy. So, I mean, what are they going to do? When's the WBC going to order this thing? And if and when they order it, what's the PBC going to do? Are they going to try to forego the matchup altogether? Shelf Marcus Browne? What are they going to do? Are they going to try to just push for a purse bid? Are we going to see another instance where Bob Arum is accusing these guys of collusion? What is going to be the result when the WBC finally orders this thing? What are we going to see? What should we expect?
I don't know.
You know, in defeating Badu Jack, Marcus Browne holds the WBC silver title, and he's currently the WBA's interim champion. So there are actually two avenues of opportunity there. Could go after Gvozdyk, could go after Bivol. But that's only provided that the PBC is willing to let this guy cross the street, and that's the problem. We know what their reputation is. It comes down to working with other people, things can get difficult, and that comes at the cost of what could be a very exciting fight, because Marcus Browne, he's got a good pedigree, comes from an Olympic background, and we see that he's unbeaten as a professional. There are any variety of intriguing fights out there for him with these other guys that got belts, but unless the PBC's willing to work with other people, it's hard to imagine what the fuck they're gonna have him doing. So, you know, I don't know. I see some potential roadblocks ahead. Let's hope I'm wrong, but it's possible that, you know, there's gonna be problems.